My name is John, and this is Please Allow Me. Today we're graced to be in the presence of a former Muay Thai champion turned endurance athlete and coach. Honestly, the list of insane shit this guy has done is too long to put into a simple intro, so check the show notes. Highlights include the GORUCK 9/11 24-hour team endurance event finisher, the only person in class 0018 to finish the GORUCK selection 48-hour Crucible known as the toughest endurance event in the world. He's completed ultramarathons, 100-mile road runs, and is the creator of the world's first IronMurph. Please allow me to introduce Mark Klemm. Mark Klemm, my man, what the fuck's going on?
What's happening, JC? Glad to be back up in Boston, man.
Dude, I'm pumped that you came up here. I'm surprised you didn't fucking load up 48-pound rucksack and hump it through the Appalachians.
You know, I fucking probably should have. It would have been a pretty epic podcast, but taking a little break.
Dude, how did you get into those crazy endurance events?
So it started with when I was in Boston. I was training and competing in Muay Thai. And I did a couple small events like Tough Mudder and some Spartan races and shit. And then I moved up to New Hampshire and opened up my own gym. And I had no time for like fight training and shit. So I was like missing a void in my life of, that competition and stuff like that. Cause I was so busy training people and I did like a small endurance event while doing that. And I was able to, you can be in great shape for anything. And I always stayed in like really good shape, but fight shape, as you know, is completely different. You need to have your sparring partners and all that shit. So people would say, oh, why don't you compete? And you're in good shape. And I said, I am, but I don't have like the partners to work with.
Right.
So just doing like those endurance events sort of filled that void for like competition for me. And it's a fucking fight, just in a different way.
What was the first big one you did?
The first big one I did a 24-hour. I guess that was the first big one. Someone, one of my wife's friends' husband, he was into doing this company called GORUCK, and he had never did a 24-hour event. He had did some like 6 and 12-hour events, but he had never did a 24-hour event, and he wanted to do it with somebody. So he knew I was sort of like looking for the next thing. Right. And he said, "Hey, will you do this thing with me?" And I did it. It was actually a 9/11, so it ended at like where the towers were and shit.
Right. I think I remember that.
Yeah, it was cool. And what was I trained really hard for it because I didn't know what to expect for it. So I trained like a fucking madman. And when it was done, most people did complete it, but there were people that dropped out, and it was fucking simple. Right. It was like, it wasn't even remotely hard at all.
So it was 24 hours long, and what was the distance you covered?
I don't remember what it was. We had, I think it was like 40 or 45 pounds on our back, and it's a team event. So you do like a lot of log PT, and they put so I ended up being one of the fastest people in it. And they put the fast people in the very back, because if I was in the front, you wouldn't stay with your team. So It actually was, for me, it was a really boring event because I got put in the back, was waiting for these slow fucking people. But that was, anything with time is going to be hard naturally. Like just to keep your eyes open for 24 hours is starting to be, but it was easier than I thought it was going to be. And I like really excelled in that. And then I got like, that sort of just like, got the tasting for it, and I was like, dude, I'll fucking kill this shit.
How did you train for the first one?
I got a telephone pole. I cut it like, I don't know, it was maybe like 4 foot long, I'd say. And got, this was when I was up in New Hampshire, so we had like 15 acres of land. And I found some like trees and shit that were like falling over, dead trees. So I did like tons of log PT. I bought some sandbags, did some sandbag shit.
How did you condition your legs though? Just with the PT, or did you go on some hikes?
Yeah, I did some like hiking. I lived up like right near the Appalachian Trail, so I was like always on that. I hike a lot with my son. But one of the things that I did that I told everybody that I've always done for all my events that separates me from anybody else is I always did my Muay Thai training. So I was still doing my road work, which every fucking fighter should be doing. Shout out to all you lazy motherfuckers that don't run.
They hate running.
Hate running because you're fucking pussies.
I
Anyways.
tell them all the time. I'm like, look, wrestlers, Muay Thai fighters, and boxers very rarely get tired. The three things in common is road work.
Fucking road work.
The MMA guys nowadays, they want to hit a tire and flip some fucking ropes around and act like they're in shape.
Yeah, road work, man. So anyway, my main thing was to keep up with my Muay Thai training, doing that road work, hitting pads, sparring, and then I would add in, you know, some other things as well. But I think, you know, one thing that separates Muay Thai from a lot of combat sports is obviously winning is important. You want to win, but in Muay Thai, how it is it's all about not quitting. So you could have a fight, get the fucking snot kicked out of you. If you don't quit and you continue fighting through that time, when you get out, there's not one person in the crowd that would be like, yo, Mark got fucked up just now. They'd be like, yo, Mark fought to the end. And that's what separates Muay Thai from everything else. So I think like having that mentality, then going into these endurance events, I've already had that, like, just don't fucking quit. You just give it your best. Right. And, you know, I'm not the biggest or strongest, fastest person in these events ever. But when push comes to shove, I can always fucking manage to squeak it out.
You got to bite down on your mouthpiece and just keep going forward.
That's right.
Yeah. What would you say would be the most difficult endurance event you've ever completed?
Well, that's like a toss-up. I'd say for like the next day after you're finished an event, the hardest thing is a 100-mile run. You can't even walk during, you know, after you're that 100 miles. Maybe some people can, but you know, you can't get up at all. It's really hard to get out of bed and move. And like for this last 100-miler I did, you know, I had several bottles that I kept right on the bedstand so I could just roll over and take a piss in, because you can't even get up to go to the bathroom.
Wait, what did you do for 100 miles? Did you run? Did you walk? Did you march? I won't even drive 100 miles.
Yeah, you run. You run. It's not like an incredible fast pace, but yeah, you run. So 100 miles are really hard. It's just kills your legs. But like I said before, anything that puts in time, like I said about that 24 hours. So, you know, I've done like 48-hour events, and that naturally is going to be a lot harder because it's 48 hours long. Right. So it's not like you can just get to the finish line. The finish line is being 48 hours. So no matter what you do, you could pick anything. You know, if you do something for 48 hours, it's gonna, you know, beat your body down.
When you do the 100-miler, is it 100 consecutive miles, or do you do like spurts? Is it like 25 miles here and then 25 miles there? Or you just start and you go for 100 miles?
No, yeah, you start it and then you just go. You do 100 miles straight. So
you put a ruck on?
Not for the 100 miles.
So you're shuffling along for 100 fucking miles nonstop.
Yeah.
How long does that take?
Well, this last one that I did, my goal was to do it in 24 hours. And
you're out of your fucking mind.
And yeah, I wanted to do it in 24 hours. And then I had like 4 miles left. I won't forget it. I had 4 miles left, and I had 40 minutes to go for my 24, like to do it in 24 hours. And I said, if I could just put up this 10-minute mile pace, which is a pretty easy pace to have, but when you're already 96 miles in.
So most people can't run a 10-minute mile, like getting off the couch, like fresh, like on a full night's sleep. So you're telling me at the end of this race, you had to kick it into gear and do 10-minute miles, 4 10-minute miles from mile 96, 97, 98.
And I didn't. My total time for this last one was, it was 24 hours and 50 minutes. So it shows the amount of time. It took me 90 minutes to do the last 4 miles. Dude. And I was just, and you know, you think like, my wife's like, yo, you only got 4 more miles. And it's so like, you're like, dude, I just want to fucking go. But, yeah, I live out in like Taylor, South Carolina. And, it wasn't like an easy run. It wasn't a flat run. It wasn't a trail run where it's good for your knees. It was a road race. So, it was a lot of like just pounding on your legs, and it's super hilly, and not only like going up hills, but going downhill is actually harder than going up hills. It just kills your quad. So, yeah, my time for this last one was 24:50.
What kind of shoes are you wearing for that?
Oh, all day. Brooks Ghosts.
Oh, nice. Shout out to Brooks.
Shout out to Brooks, man. That's it. Fuck anything else. No, it's Brooks Ghosts.
Yeah, I remember.
Trail run, Brooks Cascadia.
Noted. I remember I remember we did like a pre-qualifier march for air assault back in the day. And we had to do like, I mean, it was like 12 miles in 3 hours, but it was like all up and down this place called Mount Motherfucker. And they took like the lanyard off our rifle. We had like 45-pound ruck and stuff. And I thought that was one of the hardest things I had ever done and completed. And when I think about like when that was over, how, well, we were wearing like government issue boots, but like when I took my shoes off for that, and my feet were so fucked up for like 4 days, and I see you on Instagram doing these things, I'm like, this motherfucker, because I had to tell myself the whole time, like, I played all kinds of psychological games with myself to not quit and to keep going. And so I kept thinking to myself, what the fuck are you thinking of? Because you can only retread the same ideas in your head so many times to get yourself through 12 miles. If you're trying to get through 100 miles, what are you telling yourself?
Yeah, so my wife calls it when I go to like my dark side. It takes a while. I go there for most of my events, and sometimes I can't like tell myself when to get there. So sometimes it'll take an hour. Sometimes it might take, for an endurance event, it might take like 12 or 13 hours to get there. But once I go there, everything shuts off. My body goes into autopilot, and nobody can stop me from anything.
Goddamn.
And I don't, and I really don't think of anything. Anything good, bad, negative, happy. It's just my body just goes. That's
like a thing I think a lot of people don't understand who have never like put their body through a whole bunch of shit. Like I can remember like going through like
which is everybody.
I can remember going through like fight camp training and just being like, I do not want to do this right now. And you just kind of have to like surrender to the process a little bit and be like, I used to just tell myself like, champions will find a way and losers will find an excuse. Yeah. And it's unfortunate that I figured that out a little bit too late after I was already beat up and, abused my body too much. But, that's the way it is. So what's the motivation for you when you're doing these things? Like there's no cash prize for these things, right? It's just, what do you get, a fucking hoodie and a free beer at the end?
Yeah. So I never did anything for money. I'm not selling my soul for that shit. Even with fighting, once I became a professional fighter, you obviously get paid. But I didn't fight professionally because I wanted to make the money. I wanted to, push the competition and have harder fights and stuff like that. So the money was cool that it came with it, but I would have did when I fought like in Thailand, I got like 64 American dollars. I don't even remember how many baht it was, whatever that equals. But you can get fucked up over there in Thailand. You fighting over there, and there's not a lot of things going on good for you. But I didn't do it for the fucking money. You do it for the experience. You do it to feel alive, and
you really unless you're the most elite of the elite combat sports participants, no one should be doing it for the money. Yeah, like even guys who are fighting like in the UFC, like top 15 guys, they still like barely make a living.
Yeah,
like,
they live with their mom.
Yeah, they live with their mom. They refuse to do anything else.
I tell, it's weird because I'm about to be 38, and you hear the shit being told to you when you're 20, but you don't listen to them, right? And you're like, oh, stupid old motherfucker, And now that I am that stupid old motherfucker, you try to tell these young kids stuff, and they don't like want to listen to you. And I'm like, yo, you need to have a backup plan, like. Unless you are that top tier fighter, you are going to make the money. But, I told myself, how many UFC fighters, Bellator fighters that I know, let alone if you're a Muay Thai fighter, that's fucking no money in that. Right.
Try being a jiu-jitsu fighter.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, because I don't do that shit. But, I don't wear pajamas. But no, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding, Professor. Don't choke me out. But no, yeah, man. Like I try to tell them, like, yo, you need to have a backup plan in life. Unless you're the champion, and. Even what's the little weight class in the UFC?
The lightest one, 125.
Like that's like not even a thing anymore, because that guy was really good. What's his name?
Henry Cejudo.
Yeah, and there was another one that
Demetrius Johnson.
Yeah,
So they don't know if they're gonna wind up keeping that, but for them it's a revenue thing. Like they don't. Yeah. I think that they probably started that weight class so that they could have inroads into other parts of the world where human beings are just smaller. Like in
Thailand.
In Thailand, and different Asian countries and shit like that. But,
but those guys aren't, I'm saying they're top tier in the world, and they're still not making what 185 pounders making and stuff.
Well, I mean, no man should be 125 pounds. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I don't know. There's probably a couple of them that could fuck me up. I don't know.
But it's real hard to make a living doing any of that shit. And
Yeah.
I remember like I was talking to one of my students and I was like, look, there's no reason you can't have a job. Like I think that like when people are trying to become a fighter or whatever, like think about any other artistic pursuit. Most people have something else that they're doing. Granted, like fighting takes a lot out of you and it beats on your body, but like, and if you're at the top tier, I get it. You need your rest, you need all that other stuff. But I know plenty of people who literally have never even competed in even an amateur fight who are like, I don't want to work. How can I get sponsors?
Yeah.
Like, you can't, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Like, get it. There's no reason you can't have a 20-hour a week job.
No, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Pay your bills.
Yeah.
So I hear you on the like not doing it for money. And I've always told my guys also like, if you're doing it, especially on a local scene or the regional scene, if you're doing it for money, you're doing it for the wrong reasons.
Well, I know, I've said it for years. Obviously, there comes there's levels in fighting,
Right.
You could be really good, but then there's that next level. But if you go to an all amateur show, there's, same with boxers. Boxers can have, over 100 fights as an amateur. You go to some of these amateur Muay Thai shows, these guys have 20, 30 fights. They could be fighting professionally, but they don't. They fight for the love of the fucking sport, and they fight hard as shit, Then you go to a big pro card, and you see these guys flaking out. They pretend they got hit in the balls or whatever it is, and you can see the difference between a high-level amateur than a pro, because the high-level amateur, he's not doing it for the paycheck. He's doing it because he fucking loves that shit.
Do you think that there's anything to the fact that like when you're an amateur and you're doing it for the love of it, when you finally do turn pro, there's a combination of maybe you get paid a little bit and also maybe like the ancillary benefits that come with it, because there's like a social credibility too that a lot of people are looking for. And you combine those two things with a bunch of injuries and stuff, and it just seems like you see so many pros mailing it in. And I wonder if that could be an issue. Maybe they need to. Maybe it's a state of mind you're born with, like your dark place that you go to.
Yeah.
But that could be it. I see in jiu-jitsu, we call it the blood round. It's a term we steal from wrestling. The blood round is the round at which no matter what happens after this round, I'll get a medal. I'm either going to get a bronze medal, a silver medal, or a gold medal. And in jiu-jitsu tournaments, there's a share for bronze. They don't even fight back for fourth place. So you don't even know who's third and who's fourth, which is bullshit. And I always think like you can see in your students when they mail it in, they get to the blood round, they know they're getting a medal, and to them it doesn't matter if it's a gold medal, a silver medal, or a bronze medal. And so they mail it in, and if they win their next match, fine. But a medal is good enough to get on social media and be like, yo, look how hard I worked.
Yeah. It's all like participate. It's either you win it or you don't. The second place and third place is just yeah.
To me, it's like if I make it to the finals and you wind up, getting a silver medal and people say, oh yeah, you won silver, I say, no, I lost gold.
Yeah.
I didn't win the silver.
Well, I remember I don't even know how many years ago, shit, was it 2006, 2007, when I was doing jiu-jitsu, and I competed, not a whole bunch of times, but quite a few. And I never like made excuses I never won any of fucking those things that I did, nagas and shit. But, I'd always go and give it hell. But I remember hearing people in the gym going like, they'd be like, oh, how'd you do? And they're like, oh, I lost to the guy that won it on my first one. It's like,
doesn't matter.
Doesn't fucking matter. I know, and probably was some fucking Brazilian back then that sandbagged their division anyway. Because that's what they used to do back fucking.
That is true.
At the time. And, but it doesn't matter if they sandbag or not. You fucking lost. Don't make an excuse. You suck. You just got to come back, train harder. But that was their excuse. They were happy with that loss, because they lost to the guy who won the division.
Do you think that's something that they're born with, like that mentality of making excuses? Or do you think that's something that's nurtured in them? Like obviously anyone can't get up and do an endurance event like you do. A lot of times what people do is they say, I won't do something as camouflage for I can't do something. Like I would never do a combat sport where I get hit in the head because I'm worried about concussions. That's not what you're worried about. You're worried about the fact that you can't do it. And so you've cloaked it in this idea that you won't do it because of some, danger that may or may not befall you.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's really one or the other. I think it's depending on the person, but I think people are born with like that, making the excuse, and I think the person that really wants it and they lose, they would just say, oh, why'd you lose? I just got to train harder. They wouldn't, necessarily say I lost to the dude who won the bracket or whatever you guys call it.
Yeah. I mean, it's I think like my new thing that I've been working on the last couple of years is saying that like preparing for an event, the whole process is about eliminating excuses. Like when you train for an event, you can't have, I didn't do my cardio as an excuse for why you lose, or I didn't have my sparring time, or I didn't have my training time. I didn't have my strength.
You shouldn't have competed.
You shouldn't have competed.
Yeah.
And the number of people that will be like, oh, you know, my girl was all on my ass that week. Well, you know what? You should fucking dump her.
Dump her.
If she's in your way.
Get her the fuck out.
Look, she needs to be along. She needs to be with you in the effort to succeed. Otherwise, she becomes a hindrance, and now you're just making excuses. And it's fine for guys who are like, I want to do one jiu-jitsu tournament for the t-shirt, or I want to do one amateur MMA fight. But
like a bucket list kind of thing.
Right. But if you're trying to get to the top of something, like you have to have that kind of like that dark place where you can put all the other things aside and you can dedicate yourself to the process, and that will be it.
Yeah, for sure.
Like when you talk about doing the endurance events and things like that, I wonder how many people and at what point in that process people would quit. Like that would be a great way to filter people out.
Well, there's some, I don't know who said it. I work at the UFC gym down in Greenville, and it's the facility's unreal, but along the whole like borders, you know, it's probably like a 20-foot border on the top. They have like just famous quotes, like written really big around the whole entire gym. And one of the quotes up there, I really like it a lot. It's not word for word, but it says, some people saying like quitting isn't an option, but it's the most easily accessible option that there is in the world.
It's always an option.
It's always a fucking option, you know? So I do think that people really want to find that sometimes, you know? And,
well, people like you see people all the time, people who would rather get DQ'd than take the loss. You know, or they fake the nut shot, like you said, like they don't want to do that. It's just, you find a convenient way out because you don't want to find a hard way through. Yeah. And, you know, I think like the things that the endurance events that you're doing, there's no easy, convenient way out of that. It's just one way through it.
Yeah. Well, you know, my wife says, she'll be like, well, you know, you can just do shit. You just do shit, Mark. You know, other people can't do it. And I said, you know, the fucking work that I put in, like, and she'll agree, you know, like she tells me all the time, she's like, I get tired of seeing you just work out and like do this shit. But one of the things that I really like doing is when you're doing these events is actually getting to that dark place where it's not necessarily that you're going to quit, but you know, you're just fucked at some point. And you know, for a 100-mile race, you know, your knees go, your ankles go, you can feel your toenails starting to fucking, fall off. And knowing that you can be in this like hellhole and then climbing out of it, it's a really unique feeling. And until you've ever been into that spot, and you could get it in fighting, you know, I tell all my fighters, the last thing I say to them, I say, remember, you're never out of the fight. No matter what, you get the shit kicked out of you for the whole time. You got 1 second left. It's always that puncher's chance, you know. But to be in that dark place by yourself, and when you're fighting too, you're by yourself. And if you can climb out of it, it really brings a special feeling to you. And then it's addictive, you know. You want more. Like this last event that I did at IronMurph, I didn't get there, and I was really disappointed. Wasn't disappointed that night. But I went through like this depression like the next 2 days, and I was like, man, I really wanted it, but I trained hard for it, so that's why it didn't happen.
The depression after an event is a real thing. So they say that.
Yeah, it is. It happens.
Oh, it happens a lot. And then like, especially if after an event you start drinking for a couple of days, it makes it worse. You know, like you spend like 8-10 weeks in a fight camp or preparing for something, and like, I don't know if it's the dopamine or the serotonin in your brain, but it gives you that addictive feeling. Like it gives you that great feeling, that high feeling. And that's why people get addicted to working out. And then you reach your goal. It's like the peak of this entire process is the fight or the competition or whatever. And then it's over the next day. And then all your levels like dip down and they drop. And then chances are maybe after the event, you went and got hammered.
Yeah.
And then when you do that, it adds to it. And now you have that real dip. They say that's why a lot of professional boxers will box well past their prime, because they're just addicted to that feeling and they need to pull themselves out of the depression.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a real thing, you know. And in my family, you know, me too, we suffer from like anxiety and depression, and, you know, doing these events really helps me. So like Serena's always, if she sees me going to these holes, she'll be like, oh, hey, guess what? In 4 weeks, you're doing a 50-miler. And I'm like, wait, what? And she's like, you're going down that fucking that fucking trail right now.
Yep.
You know, you got to go train for something. So yeah, you do need to have that event to do and look forward to. But then, yeah, like when it's done, it's cool. You know, that even the next day you might not feel too down because, you know, you get all these cool text messages. You're a savage, you know, which you don't do it for that reason, but it makes you feel good.
It makes you feel good. But and I also think that thing you talked about, like pulling yourself out of like the bottoms, like the doldrums, and like, you know, from the depths of despair to either win a fight or to finish one of these events. I think the big problem with most people is they've never done that once. Because once you've done it once, you know, that it's possible. And then you do it again and again and again, because I think confidence is just a series of small victories strung together. Sure. And if you never even get the first fucking victory, like, and it's just about putting, like when I coach guys, I'm like, look, you have to keep pushing yourself past where you're comfortable, or you're never going to find that result. You'll never find that first small victory. Yeah. And then, you know, doing endurance events is nothing but, I'm sure every step is a small victory.
Well, that was really cool, you know, and now that I'm older and, you know, I'll fight again. I think I probably will do maybe 1 or 2 more fights.
Me too.
I don't know when, but like, it's not like on my radar right now, but I will do them. And, but man, I realize now that I'm older, like the whole time I wanted to fight and do all that shit, it was like, back then I was like, I want to like fuck somebody up. Like, this is the shit. And all it was to fight myself. Like I was fighting myself. And there's nothing more that you can do in this world that I've ever experienced, fighting yourself, besides than doing an endurance event. Because a fight, yeah, you get fucked up 15 minutes long. A lot of things could happen, you know, but
there's an active defender in a fight, right? And there's someone that you can channel your energy against. You're in your own head.
Yeah. And you learn defending things, you know, like when you go for a run or you do these endurance events, like you go into that event knowing that you're going to get fucked up. You could do a fight and knock somebody out in like the first round. And like I just had a guy last weekend clean this guy's clock in 33 seconds, round 1, neck kick. He walked out fucking, you know, good to go. You can't go into an endurance event, an extreme one, you know, Tough Mudder or whatever.
You know, you're getting fucked up.
You're getting fucked up for a long time. You're going to probably get fucked up around 10 hours in, and then you still got, you know, however many left to do it. So it's a big mental thing, you know, for sure, going into it knowing you're going to get fucked up and you know, pulling yourself out of it.
The IronMurph that you're talking about, is that the one that you started out? To clear that up for me. Did you invent that variety of the IronMurph?
Yeah, so what happened is one thing that I do that I really pride myself on, that I think that I do different from anybody else, is I always try to do something different. So say you're really good at Muay Thai, right? And you do Muay Thai, you become a professional Muay Thai fighter. Maybe you become a Muay Thai champion, you know, of the world. But all you're good at in your life is Muay Thai. You can't do anything else. And or say you're a runner, you do marathons. All you are is a marathon runner. So what I always like to do is to try to do something else. And the main reason to do something else is to get me out of my comfort zone. And I like being out of my comfort zone. So I did, you know, just tons of different types of events and shit. And I wanted to try an Ironman because that's like a whole new thing. And I never did a triathlon or anything like that. So, yeah, so I signed up for an Ironman. I said, what's better than a regular triathlon and shit, you know? That's Ironman's the hardest one. So I signed up for a Chattanooga one, and it got canceled because of COVID a couple weeks before. And I was really pissed because I fucking bought some stupid road bike, which I'm not into road biking, you know, and I had gym membership.
Those shits are expensive too.
Hell yeah, I got like carbon fiber. Fucking, she was like $2,500 or something for everything, but I didn't want it. I like riding BMX bikes, you know.
Yeah, I know. I remember.
Yeah, BMX bikes, my shit. But yeah, you know, I had to buy a gym membership for the first time. I don't even know the last time I paid a gym membership, but to a pool for swimming, you know. And then they canceled it because of COVID, and it wasn't Ironman that really did it. It was the city of Chattanooga that did it. But I was like, fuck you, Ironman. Like, I want to do something even harder, because that is already the hardest thing, you know. Right. So my first thought was I'm going to invent my own, like, do it yourself Ironman. And at the end of it, I'm going to do I'm going to do 5 3-minute rounds of pads. That's a pro Muay Thai fight.
Yep.
So I'm going to do a full Ironman, and then I'm going to do 15 minutes of pad work, mad hard, and I'm going to call it the Iron Mark. Like, just to outdo the Ironman. Like, fuck you and your athletes. Watch me. And in life, it's always about being bigger than yourself.
Right.
You know, it's like, and I started thinking about it, and I was like, what else could I do that's dope? And I do the Murph Challenge like every Memorial Day.
I don't even know what that is.
So the guys, his name's Michael Murphy. He was a SEAL, and when he was alive, it wasn't called the Murph. Obviously, it was just his workout he did, and he called it the body armor. So after he was done doing whatever they do as SEALs, which I don't know, he would do that on top of it, and he called it body armor. So he'd put like a 20-pound vest or a ruck on, and then he'd go for a 1-mile run, and you do 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 squats, another mile run with the 20 pounds. So I had did them, you know, before quite a bit, and I was in the Navy. I'm a veteran, you know, Navy, and I was like, man, that'd be fucking dope to do an Ironman and follow it by the Murph, and I'm gonna call it the Iron Murph instead of like the Iron Mark with the pads. So I like looked it up right away because everything's been done in this world now, right? It doesn't matter what, you can't think of something that hasn't been done. So I looked it up, and I found a couple people did like two Murph challenges in a row. They called it the Iron Murph. I saw another one where a guy like rode, I don't remember how many meters it was, and did some other exercises with the Murph on top of it. But they should have just called that like the double Murph or the rowing Murph or whatever. I thought my name was pretty legit for what it was. So yeah, so I sort of just invented it, and I thought it'd be cool. And then as a couple of days went by, I said, man, this is pretty unique. No one's ever done it before. And I thought it'd be really cool to, I'm not big into like fundraisers and stuff, because I know when people ask me for money, I'm like, you know, you don't want to do it. But I was like, this is dope. So I decided to do like a fundraiser for it too and try to raise some money. And it took me a while to find a good spot, but I found a cool place up in Manchester, New Hampshire called the Liberty House. And it's like a transitional living facility for homeless veterans. And yeah, so I was like, I'm going to raise money for this. And when I was setting it up, I didn't know if I was going to raise like $100, $1,000, $10,000. I had no idea because I don't do fundraisers.
Right.
And so I was like, let me just do a $5,000 goal. If I only raise $1,000, it's still $1,000 more than what they had before.
Right. You're going to do the thing anyway.
I'm doing it for free.
Right.
Like I already decided I was going to do it for free like 2 or 3 days before that. So yeah, so that's what it was. It's just it's a full Ironman. And one of the things I wanted to do with it was, because I was like mad at Ironman, I wanted to up my that I was going to do. So the swim was the same. What was a little bit different? So in Chattanooga, it was going to be a 2.4 mile swim, which is what Ironmans are. But you swim in a river, the Chattanooga River, and you go with the current, which the current's not crazy, but it does help you out, that current. Right. So what I did is I did it in the lake, and I did it 1.2 miles out and 1.2 miles back, just in case somebody said, well, you had the current. I wanted to like shut down all haters.
Yeah, eliminate all that shit.
So if you say, yeah, I had the current, well, good, I swam against it, or vice versa. So that's why I didn't do a 2.4 across, because I didn't want anybody to say anything, even though they weren't there for it. I did down and back.
Does anybody actually ever say like, yeah, well, you had this help, or yeah, well, you did this when you're doing these events? Because I would think that just
I'm sure there's always those fucking people. There's this song called I'm So Happy on fucking YouTube, and people hate it. Like, I don't like the song, but you shouldn't hate the fucking song. You know, put your thumbs down to it. It's a fucking song about being happy. You know, people hate on everything. So I just wanted to make sure I, did that. So then with the bike ride, I don't remember exactly what it was in Chattanooga, but I think it was like 4,200 feet of elevation gain. I needed to updo that. So I had over 6,500 feet of elevation gain for mine. And the run, I think it had like 2,000 or something, or 1,500. I don't know what it was. And I had almost like 3,000 feet of elevation gain for my run. And then, so I outdid my original Ironman. And then for the Murph, if you watch like the CrossFit games and shit, yep, all those fucking meatheads, they wear like the perfectly most fitted vest possible, because it's evenly balanced.
It's a runway too. It's
a
runway.
Yeah.
It's an incestuous bunch of people.
Yeah. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do my Murph with a ruck on, because that's all your weight in the back. It's not cinched to your back super tight. It's awkward. And so I did mine with the Ruck and not a vest. And then I also did all my pull-ups with a wide grip pull-up, which is the hardest pull-up you could possibly do. And I made sure everything was done correctly. Like, you know, you lock your arms out, full squat where your butt touches your heels,
right,
lower your chest to the floor. So I just didn't want that one fuck to say, hey, you didn't fucking do it.
I honestly, like, I can't even believe anybody would read the title of one of those challenges and then just like the distances that you attain, whether it's running or swimming or whatever the fuck you're doing. And even for a second, trying to find a way to diminish what you're doing. Like, that's got to be the ultimate basement dwelling fucking Cheeto breath motherfucker.
Yeah, but they're there. They're out there. And I don't know, I didn't see like, I don't like do that shit for the fame really. I was doing it, I just do it for myself, but I'm sure there's somebody out there, and I guarantee you there's a bunch of people that I know who I think I'm friends with that are probably like, nah, I hope he fucking fails. They're out there. Fucking haters.
That's a different thing though. The people who hope you fail are different than the people who try and like diminish it after the fact. Diminishing it after the fact is this attitude of like, oh, well, he made it easy on himself. And like, it's almost in this tone of, I would have done it harder, or would have done, you motherfucker, you wouldn't have done anything.
Well, you know what? A couple people said to me, and some of them were my students. One of them was a surfer before, but he it was like 3 weeks out from the event, and the temperatures dropped down in South Carolina. So I did all my swimming in a pool. I didn't train. I didn't do any of my training for the course that I was doing because I'd make it easier.
Right.
And I didn't want to do that. I wanted it to be hard. And Sky, who used to surf, and then some other people said, because the temperatures dropped down in South Carolina when I was doing the lake. So when I started, it was like 7 a.m. Like it was like in the upper 40s outside. Yeah. And so I followed all of the exact rules for an Ironman, like what the water temperature's got to be to wear a wetsuit. Because you can't just wear a wetsuit. Like it's got to be certain temperatures. And if you do wear a wetsuit outside of that temperature, you can't get put up for awards like if you did win the event.
Right.
But yeah, some people said, oh, you're going to wear a wetsuit for the thing? And I said, yeah, I actually just bought one. I bought it like 3 weeks out because the temperature dropped. And they said, it's good because it makes you a lot more buoyant. Like, dude, you can fucking put 40 pounds on my back. I don't want it for the buoyancy. Like, I'm doing it so I don't get hypothermia. You know what I mean?
Your fat fucking gullet makes you more buoyant.
Yeah.
Sit over there and watch.
Yeah. So it pissed me off that people said like, oh, you're doing it for the buoyancy. Like, no. And I didn't do it for the buoyancy. And it cost me $310, that stupid wetsuit with shipping. Like, I didn't want that shit. Now it's folded up in my closet for one wear. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I didn't wear it for the buoyancy, but that's the way people think,
So did you say when you were doing the run, you gained 30,000 feet of elevation?
No, 3.
Oh, I was going to say,
no.
Does 3,000 feet affect your oxygen intake?
Well, it's not like you're going, so how elevation gain works, it's not like you're just going straight up. Like you could start your run at like, I'm just making this up, like 1,000 feet. You could be 1,000 feet like above sea level, but then you might, run down a hill and then you run. So it's that over a course of a period of time. So say you do like let me just think of something. Say you do like a 5-mile loop and it's 1,000 feet of elevation gain. Well, if you do that 5-mile loop 20 times, you have 20 times 1,000. And that's your elevation gain.
20,000.
Yeah. So it's not like you're like just fucking going up a mountain.
I thought you were talking about like fucking going all the way up.
No, yeah. That's the way they do it, like for like running events, So if you see something, say you signed up for like a marathon and they're like, it's, a bunch of laps, 4 miles, and you're like, oh, it's only 800 feet up. That might be per lap, and then you got to multiply it.
Are you familiar with the guy, David Goggins, who does all these crazy endurance events?
I am familiar with him.
Yeah. Your thoughts?
So one thing about, I hate being compared to him. A lot of people have said, yo, you like the white David Goggins and this. I said, no, I'm fucking Mark Klemm. That's who I am. And I was doing some of this shit before I ever heard of him. Now with that, he's incredible. He's obviously done some feats that are just completely remarkable. I hate being compared to him though, because I'm not him. I don't try to be like him at all. And so it's sort of like, to me, and there's people in this world that you've never heard of, and that I've never even heard of, and I'm sort of in the community, that are tough motherfuckers. They do this shit and they don't want it for the fame. They don't do it for the publicity. And David Goggins to me is sort of like the pop music person, the guy who
Right.
he's like the Drake, you know what I mean? You always hear him on the radio, but there's underground fucking people that are way better, but
Right.
you'll just never hear of them.
Well, it's like anything else. Like, I mean, somewhere there's a guy in a Muay Thai gym who could be a world champion if he ever decided. Same with jiu-jitsu and MMA. Every gym has that. Do you think that him being kind of like the Drake of endurance athletes is a byproduct of his success, or do you think he set out to do that, or do you think it's just something that kind of organically formed because he started to get a little bit of notoriety through doing it?
Well, I don't know him personally, you know. I did read his book. I checked that out, and I think he probably, he always says it too. He needed to like overcome shit in his life, and his whole fucking story or whatever. But I think that he also feeds off of, he has his own like line of clothing now, and if he's making fucking bank off of it, you know what I mean? Who am I to say anything about him? You know what I mean? But I'm not hating on him at all. I just hate being compared to him because I'm not him. I'm not you. I'm fucking Mark Klemm. And if he wants to fucking race, I'll race him. You know what I mean? Like,
oh shit, the gauntlet has been thrown down.
Nah, but you know what I mean? Like, I hate that it's like always his name. It's not like if you were a fighter, you know what I mean? You could be like, oh, you're like George St. Pierre. Then the next person might be like, I don't even fucking know UFC guys, but like, oh, you're like Anderson. So you could get a couple different names, and you're like, oh, you remind me of him. It's like, because I do endurance events, it's like I'm always David Goggins.
Right. Well, it's a very niche sport, and it's like he's now like the face of it.
Well, he is 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, and he's done some fucking savage shit for sure.
I've listened to a couple of podcasts that he's been on. I did not read his book, and it sounds like. I mean, that's some insane shit that he's done.
Yeah.
When you read the book, did it motivate you at all? Or were you just kind of like trying to...
Nah, but no, it didn't. And then when my wife read it, because she read it after me, I went through this time where I thought I needed, not that I needed, so I hate reading. I fucking hate it. So one of the things I do for when I'm training for a really hard event is I get a new book because I hate reading, and that helps me do one more thing that I hate doing. It's all about doing things you hate.
Piling on the misery.
Piling on the misery. So I thought it was cool like years ago, and like when he released that book, to get like these books that are like people like me, like that are into that shit. And I realized I was like, I don't need to be self-motivated by your fucking stupid story. You know what I mean? Like, that's your story. Like, I have my own, and I do my shit for my own reason. So
external motivation is a tough thing to embrace.
Some people love it though.
Some people do love it.
Yeah. But like, I don't need that shit. I'd rather read a book on fucking animals. You know what I mean? I like, I don't know.
I mean, there are some tough days where I'm getting up and I'm going to the gym and I don't want to do it. And I put that YouTube video of Rocky's greatest moments on, and it gets me a little bit amped up for the gym. But I'm going anyway. I'm just looking for a little bit of extra encouragement. When
it runs out, it's like, but I mean, the stuff that he's accomplishes, it's incredible for sure. I just hate that it's like his name. Every time I'm done doing something, it's like I hear his name like 5 times.
It's like being compared to your girl's ex. It's like, oh, fuck that.
Yeah, fuck that shit.
I'll race him too.
Yeah, I'll race him too.
When so we were talking earlier about like the professional and amateur Muay Thai fighters. Do you find that as a professional Muay Thai fighter in the United States, it's hard to find authentic Muay Thai events to compete in? Do you feel like it's watered down here, or do you think that there are hot spots for it?
Well, now, no. I think you can find fights. Back like when we were on the same fight cards, several times together. Back then it was like hard to find those fights. You pretty much were matched up with another, like an MMA guy, or maybe there was another gym. Boston had some good Muay Thai actually when I started, but in New York had some people. But now, I mean, it just took a while to get over to the West, but there's some, really, really good gyms now. And I don't think it's hard to find a fight. Do you find that the Muay Thai that's being taught here is authentic? Because like for a long time, to me, as a guy who's striking is not my first art, it seemed like a lot of guys who were teaching Muay Thai here were guys who learned just enough Muay Thai to fight MMA and then turned around and started teaching it like they fucking knew everything. Well, yeah, I mean, like, I remember like when Muay Thai started getting like bigger, and like all of a sudden, like if it was a karate place, they were like taking down the fucking posters, and it was like Muay Thai. Right. So, it was like a karate guy, selling that Muay Thai. But now, it is bigger now, and like the internet is crazy, right? Instagram and all this shit, and people are watching these fucking tutorial, they learn how to do a spinning elbow before they learn the footwork of a jab.
Don't get me started on this topic.
But no, hey, that is a whole nother topic for sure. But no, I mean, there's some good gyms, people are like, to go to Thailand back in the day, like, even before I was training, was like, that wasn't even a thing. You know what I mean? Like, I remember I was a kid watching Van Damme and kickbox, and I was like, wow, this is like, if you would have asked me when I was a kid who the best fighter in the world was, I would have said Van Damme. That was my fucking dude.
Yeah.
Like, you get older and you see, but like Westerners weren't in Thailand, I mean, there were a couple, but now the camps are all opened up to everybody because it's all about fucking the money,
Huge money now over there for those guys. Yeah, because a lot of times when I see the guys fighting like in Muay Thai events, they're combined with MMA events, and so they're fighting in cages and shit like that. And it just seems like there's not as much attention paid to authentic Muay Thai here as there are other combat sports.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but just recently, well, it's not happening now, but like in Massachusetts, it's been illegal. You could have fucking boxing, pro MMA, everything, and you couldn't have an amateur Muay Thai fight in Massachusetts. And then Mohammed, who owns No Boundary, he was he got it like sanctioned through the commission, and he started putting on fights. And I think Boston's always sort of had Boston Muay Thai back in the day with Steve Soriano and Bill who owns Hard Knocks now. I mean, that gym was a good fucking gym. And then, Y Crew, we had some fighters, and Sit Yaw Tong had some. And I think Boston's always like sort of flourished with that, even when I was a beginner. And then, New York had a couple as well, but the shows just aren't well, they're more now than they used to be. But I mean, back then we used to fight like on ice fights, it was like fucking Muay Thai, amateur Muay Thai, amateur MMA, pro Muay Thai, pro. It was always like these mixed things. And even that guy who I had a fight last weekend in down south, a lot of the fights are MMA cards, and they're in a cage, and then they have like maybe just 3 or 4 filler fights at the beginning.
I don't fucking know why promoters do that.
Well, I think it's to sell tickets, and it's also to fill in that spot. And you know what? You want to know what really gets me? Because
I do.
I'm not a big MMA guy.
I want to know.
They put, and this is my own opinion. They also do down there. What the fuck is it called? Combative or combat jujitsu, where you can slap.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
So.
That's first of all, don't get me started on that. That's crazy shit. You just don't want to start. You just don't want to be forced to do the stand-up portion of the striking.
Well, they slap on the ground. They're not allowed to punch. They can only slap. But anyway, it for me, what it seems like, because I'm a Muay Thai guy, and I think Muay Thai is superior for MMA in my own. Not in a street fight, obviously you need to know shit. But I love Muay Thai. It's my shit. It's my fucking shit. But it seems like promoters will put like the weakest sport to the most dominant, right? So they'll put combat jujitsu first, because who the fuck wants to watch that? I'd rather watch a straight jits match than these fatzos like slap each other. Then they put the Muay Thai fights, and then they put MMA. So what gets me is the Muay Thai comes first, like it's not as cool as MMA.
Right.
But I also would put some of my amateur Muay Thai guys against an amateur MMA guy. I bet I can't take them down when they go to tie up with them, So I don't know.
There's 2 points I want to address there, and the second one is going to be the more fun one. But the first one is: are all the fights in that order? Muay Thai, combat jiu-jitsu, MMA, or did they put it in order of the person who sells the tickets?
No, it's combat jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, and sometimes they'll do kickboxing as well. It's whatever the people want. So it's not like we're only going to do Muay Thai, we're only going to do MMA.
Right.
It's whatever you submit in. So like you submitted a fighter in his kickboxing, and I submitted one in. It could be a kickboxing fight, but it's like, and then kickboxing comes before Muay Thai. So it's like combat jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, if there's one of those guys, then Muay Thai, then MMA,
I find combat jiu-jitsu offensive as a grappler and a jiu-jitsu instructor. I find it fucking offensive. Well, it's like, just do MMA. Like, you're slapping people on the ground. Number one, for you,
it's a freak show.
It's a freak show. So the strikes on the ground are only effective in terms of moving people's hands so that you can perform more jiu-jitsu. If you're only slapping someone, you can't knock them out theoretically unless you catch them with a palm strike.
Yeah.
But it's like, how are you going to hit someone so hard that they've got to defend the strikes to open up the jiu-jitsu avenue. And then it's just like, oh, so you're telling me that you want to hit people on the ground, but you're too chicken shit to hit people standing up. It's like a time warp back to the old pancration days where like everything was open hand. Like,
but pancration was, at least they hit with the hard paw, like hard, and they would hit each other in the damn eardrums and shit.
Oh my God. It's like these guys, like they don't want to do the takedowns because they're hard. They don't want to get kicked. It's not that they don't want to kick anyone. They're afraid that they're going to get checked. Yeah. Or they're afraid to check a kick.
Well, you know what else is bad about it? Well, it is bad, but I've seen it quite a few times now since I've been down south. And because they always open up every show. Doesn't matter what show it is. It opens up with combat jiu-jitsu. Everyone just fucking laughs. You can it echoes with laughter in this. Like, why are you even signing up for that shit? If people were laughing at me, like, well, I'm not fucking doing it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's like the laughing stock of a show.
I mean,
like Manny Neves back in the day, he used to have the stick fighting. Remember the stick fights?
Yeah, the Dog Brothers.
Dude, like that was crazy, right? It was a fucking freak show act. Like, everyone just obviously getting hit with those sticks, the lesions or whatever they were called.
They were so fucked up.
They were so bad. But no one even took it. They just laughed at them. You know, people just laugh at these people.
I mean, I think people laughed at the stick fighting because they didn't understand the stick fighting. I think people laugh at combat jiu-jitsu because it's fucking stupid. It's combat jiu-jitsu, and I'm a jiu-jitsu instructor, is far stupider than people who are skilled in stick fighting doing that. The untrained eye just sees people wailing away like with two dudes with a couple wiffle ball bats at them. But the combat jiu-jitsu is just so stupid. And here's the reason why.
Because most of them are overweight.
Well, most of them are probably fat, and they're like, this is as close as I'll ever get to an MMA fight. But the problem is that modern day jiu-jitsu is not taught to deal with strikes. I'm not going to bore everybody with the difference in the guard systems and things like that. But when I started training jiu-jitsu, people trained jiu-jitsu because it was intrinsically tied to fighting. It was a piece of fighting, whether it was self-defense or MMA. The sport has changed so much over the last 20 years that that's no longer the truth. And so the techniques that people teach now, if you have an ounce of brains and someone's playing a modern jiu-jitsu game and you start to be able to strike them, and okay, you're slapping them, but like slap them like a man and they might feel it. A lot of those techniques are no longer applicable.
Well, they call it it's called nowadays like sport jiu-jitsu, right? It's like all for the sport.
Well, there's like,
I mean, I could be wrong. I don't know.
I know that like a lot of people will differentiate between sport jiu-jitsu, which widely refers to IBJJF gi tournaments, and then all the numerous no-gi tournaments out there, and they've each taken on their own style. And then there's MMA grappling, which is a much more I don't want to call it simple, but it's a much more of a meat and potatoes thing, because you have to pare down the effective techniques because you're getting punched in the fucking cake hole.
Well, not to fucking hype you up a little. You probably don't even know this story, but this one time at the bar. No, I'm just kidding. No, so when I first started training jits, you weren't around, back in 2006 or whatever, and it was Professor Alex Costa was at Y Crew, and that's who I started jiu-jitsu with. And I like love Alex. He was, when I was fighting Muay Thai, not to get off topic, when I was fighting Muay Thai, I always wanted Alex in my corner, because he was just a happy, he made me feel good, listening to John Allen. He'd be like, dude, you gotta fake this for it. I was like, oh shit. Alex has to be, Maki Klemm, you're doing fucking great, and he made me feel good. And that's what you need between the rounds. You're not really listening to the advice.
You can barely hear it anyway.
Yeah. But I fucking love Alex. But his style, I think it was like Gracie Baja, I think Alex was. It was so, and how Alex rolled was so passive. He looked like water, like how he would just do it. And I was training Muay Thai and boxing at the time. And I think that was one of the things that steered me away from jiu-jitsu is it wasn't aggressive enough for me. I was like, man, and then I had quit jiu-jitsu because this is years later. I was just so into Muay Thai. And then you came to Y Crew, and I remember watching you and Alex roll with each other, and it was always like a stalemate, back and forth. But Alex was so passive, rolling around on his shoulders, and you were putting your shoulder in his fucking face and getting your knee on his sternum. And I did some classes with you, before, we were friends and shit. But I was I told people, I said, man, if this was my first professor, I bet I'd be still training jiu-jitsu, because it's a fight. It's Muay Thai. It's grinding. It's like the clinch. Right. I remember you saying, you put your fucking shoulder, you put your hip or your knee right against his hip so hard it's like a knee. I remember hearing that shit, and I was like, man, but I was too far gone in Muay Thai at that time. I just loved Muay Thai, but No, I definitely get what you mean
It's
about like
the way that it's people debate all the time the effectiveness of a martial art. And I think that we're so far down the combat sports path now where if you said what's the most effective martial art in a street fight 15 years ago, you'd get a different answer than you will today. And like I was having this conversation with someone else and they were saying, what's better for a street fight, Krav Maga or Jiu-Jitsu? Everyone would normally say Jiu-Jitsu, right? Everyone who knows a little bit about martial arts, but people who know a lot about martial arts would probably say today's jiu-jitsu is maybe not that effective for a street fight. Who teaches takedowns anymore? People don't teach takedowns anymore. You want to know why? Because jiu-jitsu is so popular and it makes so many people so much money that basically subconsciously they've eliminated the techniques that are either A, more difficult, or B, might cause the most injury because they want students on their roster paying every single month.
Yeah, for sure.
And so to me,
it's like the new age karate.
It's really like I go to some cities and like gyms I've been a part of are like more community type things. Like people party together, they go to fights together, but like they're now places where like they just treat it like a spin class. It's like you go in at 5 o'clock, you don't know anybody's name, you do your class and you leave. And you know, and it's just one of the things that you do when you get the t-shirt. But I think that in terms of like what's the most effective martial art nowadays, it's like you walk into a kitchen, you got a loaf of bread and you have a handful of ways you can cut the bread. None of them are a knife. Like you got 2 spoons. Jiu-Jitsu and Krav Maga are both spoons now. It's just about how good are you at using a spoon to cut the piece of bread. And jiu-jitsu just isn't what it's not.
Well, I know there's like so many, I think it was like Neto. I mean, I only know so many, you know, black belts and I know a few, but I want to say it was like Neto or something years ago. He was like, man, like, and it may have not been Neto, but he was like, there's so many like guards being taught on YouTube now that I have students asking me how to do this guard. He's like, I was never even fucking taught it. Like,
right.
But they don't know how to shrimp.
Right. They don't know how to do. It's like you were saying with like people learn a spinning elbow before they learn the footwork for a jab.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. YouTube is full of so much good information, but it's also full of so much bullshit. And when you're a beginner, the problem is that you don't yet know the difference between what's the good information and what's the bad information. And then when your instructor shows you a kick and then you find someone else doing it on YouTube a different way, when you're a beginner, you view it as binary. So one way is right and one way is wrong. And you don't really know who to believe. But in reality, they're both probably right ways. And it's just that someone does something differently because their personality.
They apply differently.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like how I think about jiu-jitsu. Like you mentioned Alex Costa. Alex Costa was a tremendous training partner for me because we had such unbelievably different styles. We just approached the sport differently.
Yeah.
He approached it as a much more passive way, which is how my instructor taught jiu-jitsu. My instructor taught jiu-jitsu as a piece of Vale Tudo untimed fights. And so the concept was you have to be more passive because your job isn't to win the fight. Your job is to let your opponent lose the fight. That's when jiu-jitsu was a part of Vale Tudo and there were no time limits. I come from a wrestling background where we got 6 minutes. We got 6 minutes to do what we have to do. And also like my personality is a little bit different. So it's just about how you approach it. And people are often will say wrestling is better than jiu-jitsu in terms of grappling arts. One's not better than the other. It's just taught differently. It's just taught differently.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, everything as all these things get more popular, I feel like they spread further and further away from the root. They spread further away from the initial attraction.
Yeah.
And
well, that's sort of like where I was at. You know, when I moved to South Carolina because there's not like really any more. So down south is lacking in the martial arts community as a whole. I mean, there's the Wonder Boy, you know, he came out, he's out of South Carolina, he's, you know, good fighter, but there's really nobody else, you know? And there's places that said they teach Muay Thai and I hold like Muay Thai dear to my heart, you know? And if you're teaching a class and it sucks and it's not good Muay Thai, that's where I have a problem with it. But if you're teaching a class and it sucks and you call it striking, well, that's fine. It's just that you called it Muay Thai is like sort of where I have the problem with it, you know? It's
all like marketing. People do that with jiu-jitsu all the time. Like you can get a karate black belt who will teach a jiu-jitsu class when they're a jiu-jitsu blue belt, but they wear their karate black belt. And really they're not lying because a beginner doesn't know the difference between what one belt looks like and what the other one looks like. And so a beginner walks in and says, oh, you're a black belt. Yeah, I'm a black belt, but it's in Kyokushin. It's not in fucking jiu-jitsu. And correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't you dojo storm somebody in New Hampshire?
I tried several times.
Tell me
Gracie
about it.
gym.
Tell me.
So I live in a fucking little town, and I sort of came into the martial arts community when like Dojo Storm was sort of at its end of its reign,
which is unfortunate. By
which
the
is
way.
fucking unfortunate because I want to do it right now, and I've tried to talk to Cody. Cody, he's my manager. I told him, I said, let's fucking do this shit. You know what gym I'm talking about, Cody. But can't do it. You know what I mean? But yeah, like I don't do any kind of marketing. I don't do anything for like that kind of stuff. And so if you typed in like Bomb Muay Thai, that was my gym that I owned. His gym would come up first, which whatever. He pays for the advertisement.
And he's right across the street from you.
Yeah. So whatever. I don't have a problem with it. But someone told me that if you clicked on his Muay Thai, like his classes or whatever, and they didn't have any striking instructor there, but it said learn the same skills and techniques as Bomb Muay Thai Academy. Now I'm on his website. So that's where you have a problem.
God.
So
that's very cringy, first of all.
Yeah. So I know like the most disrespectful thing you can do in jits is like to walk on mats with shoes. So I waited to look on his schedule. So when he was having a jiu-jitsu class, and it was a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, Lebanon, New Hampshire, above Village Market. That's right, you Nick. I'm talking about you. But anyway,
we could set it up.
Yeah. No, I set it up several times. And but anyway, I went there that day, and I waited till like mid class, so I knew like everyone would be there, and I kept my dirty sneakers on. I dirtied them up, and I walked right in there in the middle of his mats, and I was like, "Yo, Nick," and he came over. He's like, "What's up, man?" And I called his fucking bitch ass out, and I told him
in front of all his students.
In front of all his students, yeah. I reminded them too if they wanted to do some real training, they could come across the street.
So did you challenge him to a fight?
Nah, I was poking him in his forehead with my index finger, like really hard and aggressive. And that's like the worst thing. Like I'd rather get, you know what's fucked up is my dad was a fucking dickhead to me my whole life, and that's what he used to do to me, and that's what I used to go cry about. He'd call me a name and fucking hit me in my head with his index finger really hard. So to me now, like that's the most disrespectful thing you could do to a man. So so I did that to him several times, and
wait, you did it in front of his students? Yeah,
in the center of his mat.
And he didn't take a swing at you?
No, he kept asking me to stop, and so I said, you got 24 hours to.
How many of his students stayed after that?
None came over to my. I think they were all scared. I don't fucking know. And the best part of it all, you probably won't like this part because you're a jits guy, but I had my daughter with me, right? She was probably like 3 at the time. I don't know, and she was just like watching, her psycho dad be me, and she doesn't know what jiu-jitsu is because she's never around it. And, right. when we left, she goes like loud enough for everybody to hear, but just kids speaking her mind. She goes, "What are they, karate people?" So it was like really funny to me, because like they're all wearing the gi and shit. But he did that, and I told him he had 24 hours to remove it, and he called me maybe 4. I didn't pick up the phone. It was probably like 3 or 4 minutes later, and it was already off his website and stuff.
You've got to. The choice is to either look like such an absolute pussy in that moment in time, or take an ass whooping. He should have taken the ass whooping. You can't let someone come in and like poke you in the fucking forehead and finger jab you in between your eyes, and then like turn around to your students and say, "I'm here to teach you how to fight." Yeah. Because really what you're teaching them how to do is how to cower. Now, some might say, "Oh, you took the high road and all this other shit."
No.
But you only take the high road from a position of power. When you take the high road from a position of weakness, you're just a coward.
Yeah. Yeah. So every time from that day on, if I went, because there was like some restaurants, he was like on the like the penthouse suite of this building, and they had restaurants underneath of it. So, we don't eat out a lot, but anytime we'd go over to like one of those restaurants, I always made sure to take a picture in front of his sign and tag him in it, and say something about his gym.
Jesus Christ.
But, yeah. And I'm not that kind of person, like that's not me. But when you put that on, like you don't teach like me. You're nothing like me, motherfucker.
Dude, that's a humongous insult. And frankly, I mean, I can't believe that he sat by and took that type of a public berating in front of his students. And then I can't believe his students like stayed with him. Like, what are you doing? Is it just for the t-shirt?
Well,
like,
that's
how can you learn how to fight from someone who is a total punk ass?
Well, that was a problem I had up in New Hampshire. We opened up the first Muay Thai school up there, and obviously I came up from Boston, like being a fighter gym, and looking back, I mean, at the time, like Y Crew, I know you're not a big fan of it now, and neither am I, but I mean, that was a dope gym back in the day. I mean,
that gym had a lot of really good people come through there, and certainly
it was incredible.
A lot of friendships were made, but the leadership was obviously lacking.
No, for sure, but coming from me being like when you came to that gym, you were already a black belt, so you had like history before. Like for me, being out of the Navy, that was my first gym, and that was like my home base, and there was fucking killers in that gym. I mean, there really was at the time, and so from coming up in a gym like how Y Crew was back then, and then moving to New Hampshire and having like those people like that live in like this little bodunk town, it was like really frustrating for me that you couldn't find like hungry people. Not that I did find my niche of people for sure, but.
Well, you just have smaller population.
It's just a smaller population. The numbers probably all equal, or the percentages equal the same. But
so, who was the toughest student that you had up there, Maria?
The toughest or the best?
The best.
Maria.
Okay.
Maria was the best.
I mean, to be the best, you have to have a level of toughness. But to be toughest, you don't really need to be.
She wasn't the toughest, but she was the best.
Yeah. And so when you went across the street, because I want to talk about this, and you brought your daughter with you, where was your son Kingston, and how old was he at the time?
He was probably in school still, because he's always with me.
He didn't ditch?
Fuck no. I'm always with my son and stuff. But
how old was he at the time? 7?
Well, he's 9 now, about to be 10. Yeah, probably 3. I'd say 3 years ago. So yeah. Probably 6 or 7, but I don't know.
And how many fights does he have?
Kingston is 9-1 right now.
He's got 10 fights. That's awesome.
And 1 exhibition that he won, but yeah, he's 9-1 now. Yeah.
What kind of rules do little kids doing Muay Thai have?
So when he did his first fight when he was 6, and it was really cool for me because it was on Veterans Day. So it was like, as a man and you have a son. Well, I don't know about all men, but you want your son to be a fucking man and fight, right? And so for that to fall on a Veterans Day too, but anyway, the rules were they got to wear headgear and they wear chest protectors and stuff. But even though they have headgear on, they're not allowed to hit in the head. And they wear chest protectors because, kids like sternums aren't developed yet and you can knee and stuff, but you couldn't elbow. So it was basically like from like the collarbone down in their 3 1-minute rounds. And then when he turned 8, it switched to no chest protectors, and he's doing like regular rules now. So his last few fights, he's allowed to hit in the head. They still wear headgear, shin pads, gloves, and still no elbows or obviously knees to the face and stuff. But
do you get comments from people about like, oh, how can you let your kid? What about CTE and brain damage? Because that seems to be the common thing that everyone uses as an excuse these days.
Some people had said things to me, but I also think people don't say stuff to me because they know that's what it is. But I'm really proud of him. Like now he only trains Muay Thai once a week. So on Monday he trains Muay Thai. But
why? Because he's doing jiu-jitsu the other 6 days?
Yeah.
Is he?
Yeah, so he's a white belt with 4 stripes, and he does jits Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. He wrestles Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday,
that's the key right there.
And he boxes on Monday and Wednesdays.
Nice.
So he's doing it all, and the least sport that he's doing right now is Muay Thai.
So when he was a little kid, you introduced him to Muay Thai, you brought him to the gym, he was always hanging out with you, right? Did he naturally take to Muay Thai, or were you kind of like, hey, take these gloves and hit these pads?
Yeah, I just showed him, that's what dad, if your dad's a football player, you fucking play football with your kid, you know what I mean? And I don't really necessarily think he like loves the competition aspect, but I think he wants to make me proud and do it,
So you should keep doing it.
So yeah, for sure. But it's bigger than doing the fights. I think when you get into a ring with somebody or a cage, you're never going to experience anything like that. And it turns you into a certain kind of human. And I think if you can experience that as younger, it's just going to help him in life, not really the Muay Thai has nothing to do with it,
Right.
even though it is Muay Thai. You know, it's trying to teach him to not quit and.
But also, he's going through this stuff now, like with his dad. Like, you remember, like the first few fights you went in. I mean, you're talking about, you know, a guy in Alex Costa who you probably haven't seen in a while. I mean, I don't know, but like your memories of that and the relationship that you formed with him during that time.
Yeah, it's bonds that you never.
You can't break them. And the same, like, I mean, same with my instructors. And now your son is doing that with you, so it's only gotta like reinforce those bonds.
No, yeah, it's fucking cool. You know, I really want my daughter to fight. She's 6. She told me she was gonna fight when she turned 6, but she's like nervous now. So we'll wait. But my daughter trains twice a week. She's good.
Yeah,
she's good. But she doesn't want to fight yet. And you know, it's fucked up. You don't push him like you push your son. You know, people are like, fucking sexist, but fucking is what it is. You know
it is what it is.
Yeah. But yeah, man, yeah, I'm like super proud of him, and he's killing it in wrestling. He wrestling's his favorite thing that he's doing right now. And
attaboy, Kingston.
The coach down there, his name's Trey. He's showing him all different types of takedowns, which is cool to see him when he does jits, because he doesn't really have the submissions really down.
Right.
It's his second gym he's trained jits in, and the first one they did was basically for the youth, they did all positioning. So it was like just dominate people in positions, and they didn't go over one submission ever. It was like just control, which I sort of liked. But now,
it's not the. I understand the concept of doing that with especially with the young kids, but the fact of the matter is that jiu-jitsu is not a control-based sport. It's a submission-based sport via control. Wrestling is a control-based sport.
Yeah. So now he's doing jits, and the coach at the UFC gym, you know, he's going over like, you know, arm bars and just, you know, all that other shit. But what the cool part of this is they always start from standing up.
Have to.
And he's able to use his new wrestling stuff. So he does like these different takedowns where it's like grabbing the leg and tripping from behind. So it's really cool to see how they like complement each other. And I don't think really one is better than the other, but I think with them together, it's like,
it's weird because the problem with teaching jiu-jitsu to adults is it's hard to teach adults takedowns because they're fucking hard and they hurt and you can get injured. But then as adults, you learn jiu-jitsu without takedowns, and now you're teaching little kids jiu-jitsu without takedowns, but the little kids don't have the same problems with the takedowns in terms of injuries or it being difficult on them. So you're actually kind of leaving out a humongous portion of the sport for them, which I think is a little bit disingenuous. I get older people who are 33, 34 years old looking for a fitness routine, not wanting to get taken down or shoot double legs on someone sprawling on their shoulders. But for little kids, I mean, you've got to include that in the curriculum. I mean, it's part of the sport. And if we continue not to do that, that will become a lost art. And it's just, you know, it's inauthentic. It becomes an incomplete martial art, like a lot of martial arts are incomplete.
For sure. Like we said, martial arts are incomplete. Like now there's some like really good gyms in Muay Thai, right? They're fucking good. They're legit, but they don't know how to clinch. And like clinching is like, that's fucking Muay Thai at its heart, you know? And I've had guys fight people from really good gyms. And, you know, I've always had a saying like, when in doubt, clinch it out. Cause I think I have really good clinch and I could teach it well. My fighters have always had good clinch. And you'll see these guys that are like superior, you know, they're one step above with like, defending, with striking, and then as soon as you tie up, fucking welcome to a whole new world. And that's sort of where we're at, right? Because in Thailand, when you're clinching, that or when you're training, like that's a big part of the day is clinching.
And in MMA, they neglect the clinch totally. I feel like they only address the clinch against the wall, and then they use a lot of like freestyle and Greco-Roman techniques. But I feel like the traditional Thai clinch is totally neglected.
I remember like Matt Brown. Was that who's name?
Yeah.
He was good. I mean, back in the day, he was doing. But you're seeing like UFC guys like even Calvin when he fought Jeremy Stevens, like throw that stand up elbow, you know, and like you're seeing UFC fighters now finally utilizing Muay Thai in there. Before you throw a leg kick, Joe Rogan big, oh, fucking Muay Thai. It's like, dude, he fucking threw a leg kick. You know what I mean? Like, but now you're actually seeing like Muay Thai in the UFC. I think people are like, you know, training under like Thai coaches now.
There was a dude from like North Africa. I don't know. One of the first fights the UFC put on in the pandemic. God damn, I should have researched this, but I didn't know we were going to go here tonight. And he took his first fight, and it was over there on that fight island. And
was he bald with the fucking beard?
The Muay Thai kid?
Yeah.
You think he was Egyptian, maybe? I could be wrong on this. He had some of the slickest striking that I've seen in a long time.
Was he like Dana? Someone told me like Dana White's son told Dana White about him, and then got him. Was he bald with a beard?
I can't remember because
if you said his name, I wouldn't even know it. So I guess it's fucking the end of this conversation.
But anyway,
it was the first over at Yas Island.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, it's got to be the same guy. He was fucking nasty.
He was nasty, and he was showing to me like what I consider to be like
he was
real
throwing like up elbows and stuff. Yeah.
It's
got to be that because I watched it and I was like, oh shit! Like finally you're seeing it.
There was a dude a bunch of years ago too, Amir Sadala. I don't know what the fuck happened to him, but he fought in the UFC and he was real authentic. He had some good clinch work, and he had some like he was throwing like leg kicks from very close range, like you see in Muay Thai fights, and you very rarely see in like MMA. But I mean, he was pretty slick. He was definitely pretty slick. I think part of the issue we see now with like the MMA guys is we're seeing more athletes and fewer fighters. And so the athletes are looking to do these things. And also the incentive in the UFC is to get your bonus, right? The pay is such shit that you need the $50,000 bonus. And so these guys are looking for the highlight reel techniques. And then it turns into the thing, like you said, they're practicing the spinning elbow more than they're practicing the footwork for a jab. I'm a big fan of all the highlight reel shit, but like if you don't have the next tier techniques down, if you don't have like the secondary and tertiary safety nets in an actual combat situation, I mean, you throw one spinning thing, if it misses, you're going to be in a shit situation, and your chances
high risk, high reward.
Yep. It's definitely weird. When not to go back, but I'm curious about this. So when you train for the endurance events, do you bring your son with you?
So since my son was born, he's never missed anything I've ever done.
He does. I mean, the training.
Oh! I thought you meant like is he there like during the finish line?
No. Like, do you introduce him to the training the way you introduce him to Muay Thai
training? So he's gonna do his first triathlon in 21. It's a sprint triathlon, so it's a 0.48 mile swim. So it's basically a half-mile swim. It's a 12.5 mile bike ride and then a 5K run.
And he'll be 9.
He'll be 10 at that point. Yeah. Yeah.
That kid's a fucking savage.
Yeah. So I just got to get his swimming, up. We already bike and we run a lot. I don't like idolize my dad at all, and that's part of, people say like, oh, he's such a great dad. And you have two roads to follow, right? When you like don't have something good going at home, you can either follow that shittiness or break away from it and like change it, so that's sort of where I'm at. And I try to stay young anyway, you know what I mean? I like doing this shit, and it's my homie. We hang out all the time. You
raise him in a way that I think, like, judging from like, having known you for a long time and seen you around your son and, watching you on social media and stuff like that, you raise him in a way that's probably counter to how a lot of people are raising their kids nowadays. Would that be accurate?
100%. I mean, we go, like talking about the road bike earlier, and I was like, I hate fucking road bikes. Like I like BMX bikes. We go to the skate park. I'm still on a 20-inch bike, and but yeah, when he rides, he's pretty good, for 9, and he, if he falls, I said, get up, boy, get your fucking bike. Like, he could be bleeding. Get up, get your bike. Oh, I'm hurt. You want me to throw it away? You want me to throw your bike away? Or you want to keep riding? He's like, I'll keep riding, Dad. And he keeps riding. And parents look at me like I'm crazy. But if my son fell and he hit his head, I'll be the first parent there, like holding my son. There's a time and a place for everything, right? So I raised him tough. I want him to know, but I also know the difference when you need to be there and when you don't need to be there. I think that's the big difference. Knowing when, like, a skinned knee is not a time for you to take them and put them in the on a gurney and buy them ice cream. You fucking have the scab. You ride. Let that scab crack. People, lick it. Yeah, people are like, oh, you got to put my wife, you got to put Neosporin on it. You got to put in Kingston. It's gonna get. No, it's not. Let that shit crack and peel it and try to get it off in one big peel. And you save that fucking scab. That was the shit when I was a kid. You got to get like these fucking 3-inch scabs. Fucking the super thick one. Yeah. And it holds on by that one little corner. That corner hurts so much. Yeah. Oh, those are. I love that. I remember one time when I was a kid, my grandfather, he's still alive too. I'm gonna go see him on Thanksgiving. Shout out to you, Pop. He's 96 years old, last one alive. But I remember one time he was watching me because I was been in BMX my whole life, and I fell, right? And I fucking fucked my leg up bad, my shin, it was bleeding all over the place. And he didn't know what to do. He was freaking out. You know, he hadn't been a parent for a while. And he went up and he found one of my mom's pads, and he put the whole pad, like a but not a tampon, like maxi pad. And I had this whole shit, and I didn't know what the fuck it was. You know, I didn't even know about periods back then. And my mom came home. She's like, "Oh, how's Mark doing?" He's like, "Oh, he busted his leg." And she looks at my damn knee and my shin, and I had one of her fucking pads over my fucking my leg. You know, he's like, "Oh, this worked well."
I mean, it's just all cotton, right?
Yeah, it's all cotton.
It's there to absorb.
I don't know what it is.
It's supposed to absorb blood, so I'm sure it worked well on your leg.
Fucking perfect.
Yeah. What about Kingston in school? Is he? The kids ever fuck with him? Does he have to ever tee anybody off on the playground?
Nah, he's So what's funny is everyone thinks he's just like me, you know, because they see stuff, but his personality, like on the inside, is just like Serena. He's a nice kid. He's super sensitive. Like if he gives you a card, you know, like on my birthday or like Veterans Day was yesterday or whatever day it was, he gets like emotional. He like wants to cry. And before all my events, whether it's fighting or even like when I did the IronMurph, like right before I started, he like bursts out crying. He's a super sensitive kid. And yeah, so it was funny. Last, you know, we just moved to South Carolina, and then last year was his first year down there. He had no friends and shit. And he was standing at a tree by himself, you know, and he heard all the boys in his class talking about how they do karate, because there's a big karate place where we live. And he was like, they were like doing karate moves on each other and stuff. And he said, I was just sitting there. He would never tell them. I had to like hype up Kingston, you know, that's why I do that shit on social media. Like he would never tell you he's good on a bike. He would never tell you he's wrestling. He's just quiet, you know, and they were talking about how they could beat each other up and stuff. So he didn't say anything, and he came home and he's like, "Oh, Dad, these guys, they were talking about like karate and stuff." And he was like, "It's so funny." He's like, "And the best part is they have no clue that I fight Muay Thai." And I was like, "Oh, word." I was like, "Just stay that way, dude. Always be that way, you know, because I'm not that way. I talk mad shit." But he's not like that at all. But yeah, anyway, with school, he never had an altercation in school. Gets mad good grades. He's
good for him.
Yeah, he's good. He's good.
Dude, I think we covered it all. What do you think? You want to go to the bar?
I'll go to the fucking bar.
Yeah, let's do that. We're going to wrap it up here, man. It's awesome seeing my good friend Mark Klemm. As always, everybody, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you get the intel as fast as we do. And stay tuned, and we'll see you next time. Deuces.
Thanks for having me, Professor.
Anytime. Us.